Hi Quilty Blockheads, we're back for the second block of month 6. This block is called the 8-pointed star. It uses a very different method that probably many of you have never used before, and that's using a template or a paper pattern. Paper patterns were much more popular in in times before we had all the rulers we have now. We have so many rulers that you can cut, or templates, plastic templates. You can cut almost anything you want using those and not having to use paper templates. But we're going to use a paper template, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so we're going to use this. You all have this in your package. What else you have is you have a blue strip, a white strip, and a turquoise strip. Yours are bigger than this. I just picked these out to show you what you would have. They're not actually the size you have, but you do have blue, white, and turquoise. Out of the blue strip, you're going to cut 2 3¼ inch squares, and that's all. So cut your 2 3¼ inch squares and put it aside. Out of the white strip, you're also going to cut 2 3¼ inch squares, but then you're going to use the rest of it with your templates. And out of the turquoise, you're going to cut 1 2½ inch square, and then you're going to use the rest for your templates. So the blue and white squares will turn into half square triangles. The turquoise square is going to be the middle of your star. Okay, but let's talk a little bit now about how to make the star, because that's what's really what you need to do this month that's really different. So the first thing you're going to do is I gave you a piece of freezer paper. Now, it's freezer paper, not parchment paper. Okay, they're very different things. It's just freezer paper that you buy at the grocery store. And as you can see, one side is shiny and one side is dull. And the side that's dull, it's very easy to draw on it. And I've just used a regular pencil. And that's probably the best. You really don't want to use markers or pens, because that smears and the pencil will not. So what I've done is I've traced these onto here just by putting my paper or my freezer paper over these papers. Now, if you have a hard time seeing, you can put them against a window or a light box. All right? I've only traced one of each because I'm just going to show you what to do using one of each. But you need to trace 4 of these, 4 of these, and 4 of these. So your paper will be much longer and fuller. Okay, so 4 of each. These will be the triangles. These will be cut piece B out of white, and these 2 will be cut out of turquoise. Oh, and by the way, up at the top, it says Bleeding Heart, month 6. It's not Bleeding Heart, it's 8-pointed star. I don't know what that was. It was a typo on here. So ignore that Bleeding Heart. This is actually 8-pointed star. Okay? Now, I've traced this on here, and now I'm ready to put it onto my fabric. And what I'm going to do, if I had little scissors, and I'm using my paper cutting scissors, is I'm going to rough cut this. In other words, a little ways away. Oh, and when you trace, you're only tracing the outside line. And the other thing is you need to pay attention. Do you see where it's not a complete corner, where it's a point? It's got like a point out here. Don't round that off. You actually want it to come to a point. Okay, so be careful about how you trace that. And remember, again, this is freezer paper, not parchment paper. This will not work with parchment paper. Okay, because as Megan said, parchment paper is like the anti-stick, and we want this to stick. Okay, what's going to happen is the other side of this, the shiny side, is more like wax paper, and it will temporarily stick if we use heat. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the iron, and we're going to temporarily stick these to our pieces of fabric. Remember, we're only using turquoise and white for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the C and the E onto my turquoise fabric. And I'm going to do it with my fabric right side up. And you don't have to worry about mirror image or any of that because you have the exact pieces. You're not cutting two of the same. You're cutting all different pieces for this. So see there, it's kind of stuck. And on the white piece, what I want to show you is you can kind of fussy cut if you want to. See, I have some flowers here, and I'd kind of like to be sure that my flowers are going to be on my piece. So I can do this, except I think I'm going to do it this way. And my flower will be on that piece. Now you can do that as long as you have enough fabric, so kind of lay it out and figure it out. But remember, you cut 4, so you can lay it out and figure out whether you have enough fabric. So now, the next step is to cut them exactly on those lines. So now you need a really good pair of scissors. Cut this off so I don't have so much. And now I'm gonna cut exactly on those lines. And if I handle this carefully, these pieces will stick until I can get them cut out. So you don't want to overhandle them, or just want to handle them with care.
Don't want to wad them up into a ball.
No, you don't want to wad them up into a ball, or you can't leave them for too long. You pretty much have to do this and now cut, because this will not stick forever. And you want to be as accurate as you can with the cutting, because you want these pieces to be the correct size to fit together. And again, when we sew them together, we want to be using that scant 1/4 inch. See how I'm cutting so that I have those points? You'll see in a minute how that fits together very nicely. Almost done, last piece. Okay, now you have 4 of these. So at this point, I suggest that you put an A, a C, and an E all together 4 times, so that you know you have a C and an E, because those are opposites of each other. Okay, so make sure that you have those all together in little groups. Okay, at this point, we can take these off. So you just kind of, probably going to make a liar out of me that says, look, I won't come off. Usually if you just wiggle it a little bit. Now you can mistreat it. Okay, an A, a C, and an E. This comes off a lot quicker than some of that fusible webbing stuff. Okay, now we're ready to sew them together. And there's a nice picture here that shows you how to sew them together. So let's go to the sewing machine. And this is how I want them to end up. Okay? That's how I want them to be when they're all done. So I'm going to take this one and flip it over, put right sides together, and now you'll start to see how your little points that you cut come together. Okay? And those points should be pretty much at the 1/4 inch mark. Okay, so now I'm going to sew along this edge at a 1/4 inch. And remember your nice scant 1/4 of an inch. If you don't use a scant 1/4 inch, this piece is going to be way too small. Okay. Now I'm going to press this seam open. Okay, so I'll do that quickly. Trying to work working backwards here, but that's okay. Okay, there's my first side. Now this one's gonna go over here. All right, now this seam's pressed open. I'm gonna put this one right sides together, and I wanna keep that seam pressed open as I sew this one on here. And look, see how nicely that fits together with that point that we cut? Okay, so same thing, 1/4 inch seam, nice and scant. Driving the machine crazy. Okay, and I'm going to press that open and look at the beautiful point I have, and that point is pretty much at 1/4 inch. So when this gets sewn into my quilt, I'll still see my point. Okay, so that's what it should look like. So now you'll have 4 of these. So the last step is to do what we've been doing all along, and that is form a 9 patch. You're going to put a 1/2 square triangle, one of these, and notice that it has to go this way. The point goes toward the middle, okay, and another 1/2 square triangle. You sew those 3 into a row. A point, your middle square, and a point, sew those into a row. 1/2 square triangle, a point, 1/2 square triangle, sew those into a row. Notice that the 1/2 square triangles, the blue should be your corners. The white's going to go towards the middle of your star. Okay, once you have those 3 rows, press for nesting. These, the middle row, press inward. The bottom and top row, press outward. That'll make them nest together right here and here, here and here. And then sew them together and press it open. And you should have a 6.5 inch 8-pointed star. If you have problems, remember you can always stop in the shop. Don't forget to stop in the shop and show us your finished squares so that you get your name put in the bucket, because free long arming is on the line. So it's wonderful to see you all, and happy quilting.